If you all could please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you please pass this to the mayor? Thank
We start this meeting off, and I thank you all for coming on Valentine's Day. I think maybe that's an honor to be everyone that's here on Valentine's Day. But we have a great employee of the month. We have Pat Letterman, Deputy Village Treasurer, Village Hall, and their date of hire was 7/25/08. I have known her for many, many years before she worked here, and she is just a terrific and very good, honest, great working individual. You couldn't ask for anybody more. And I'll read what Mimi wrote about her. And Mimi says, I nominated Pat Letterman as Employee of the Month. In my sole opinion, Pat has recently stepped up to the plate to assist the new village administrator become acclimated in his new role. Thank you, Russell. Pat is very dedicated to what she does in ensuring that the village finances meet auditing standards. Not to mention, she ensures that payroll is processed every pay period, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people that appreciate that. Pat has assisted Vicky with employee health and workers' comp issues, as well as Eileen with attendance maintenance. She is always ready to lend a helping hand and be a sounding board that doesn't ask for anything in return. I feel that she amplifies the type of employee dedicated and work ethic the village tries to foster in all its employees. And so well said, Mimi. That's very well written. Thank you.
If I could just add, she has the highest integrity, and she cares very deeply about this village. I mean, truly,
Yeah,
she works her vacations around payroll, around warrants. She puts the village first in her life in a lot of ways, and she's just generally a great person, and we are very, very fortunate to have Pat.
Yep. And I give her a round of applause. Yeah, I expect to see that hung. And in public comment, we have Sheila.
Good evening, everyone. Sheila Pfeiffer, Hildreth Street. I'm here again on the same issue I was here last month for, just to see if there's been any thoughts or any follow-up. I don't know. But as I mentioned, having read that report that was done and sent in last May about the village in general and seen that it had been recognized that lighting regulations were needed and that all the surrounding towns have regulations which respect the International Dark Sky Association standards. I was wondering if you've done whatever you might do, whether it's form a committee or start to gather the information you need, and I just, was wondering if something had happened.
Sheila, I can answer that. We really haven't been real diligent on dark skies in the village. There's no question about it. And it is something that we're going to have to take a look at and review. There are requirements on applications, building applications and stuff, that light isn't supposed to escape out of your boundaries. Yeah. And they have to present, in most cases, a scale of it. But I think that the village in general is very poor on being dark
Well,
sky component.
it may not be poor, that's the thing. I think the fact that there isn't a consistent regulation, you may be surprised to, I don't know. I'm just saying, you may be surprised to find out that you actually are in more compliance with dark sky standards than you know.
Over the years, we converted some of our
And
headlights.
it would be kind of nice to be in alignment, especially with the town which surrounds us, and, just kind of have all that be consistent so that, and we'd be able to say then that we're upholding these environmental, you probably have a lot of information, but it isn't even just the annoyance of light. It's a lot of stuff that has to do with medical health, environmental effect on birds, just, on and on. So the information is there, easily gathered. It's then just a question of checking out how to integrate it.
We did go through this several years ago. We did go through this several years ago. I'd have to look at the back notes to see what we decided. I do know that any new construction, all the lights have to shine down. And also in the village, the problem with the village business district is it's not even light enough as it is because our street lights really don't give off a lot of light. There was a group who wanted us to turn off all lights in all buildings on all of our major streets in the village business district. And quite honestly, if you did that, you wouldn't even be able to see where you're going because our street lights are not good enough. So for us, we felt that a lot of the shops that kept lights on in the window to display their goods were helpful to us as far as lighting our sidewalk. So that didn't go very far as turning off the lights in the business district.
Great. I do think, though, it might be nice to have this, for the village to be able to say it's respecting, and if there need to be exceptions, then of course, that would need to be discussed and written into the law. But I'm just thinking that if these other municipalities have been able to make it work, I would assume so.
We'd have to go back in our notes to see exactly what transpired on that, because
Yeah.
I do know that we did discuss it, we went through it. The Village Business District just sticks in my mind
Right.
because of the reasons, that I just explained, but I'm not sure how much further we went on anything else.
And I don't have access to that. I only saw that in the report, it said that it was one of the recommendations coming out of the report. I left that stuff home this time, but section H or something, was saying, to look into it. So,
Okay.
just a reminder, have a happy Valentine's Day.
Yes,
Oh, you too.
thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
To your
Oh, thank you.
So Julie, you have a little research.
Any other public comment from anybody? Then moving ahead, we have board presentations, which we have none. And public hearings, we have 2 proposed local laws. And the first proposed local law, I'll make a motion to open construction of accessory buildings.
The continuation of a public hearing that was on January 10th.
Correct.
For a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Mayor, if you like, at the last meeting, this was presented, and we gave the rationale why the board adjourned this for all purposes to obtain both reports from the Suffolk County Planning Commission as well as your Village Planning Commission. Not sure we have both of those reports
Do
as
not
of
have
this
them.
time. So my recommendation would be that unless there's any other comments, you could adjourn this for all purposes pending receipt of those reports to your next meeting. Hopefully we'll have something by then, and then we'll decide what to do with it.
Late this afternoon, I'm in receipt of a letter from a local resident on Downs Path that is in favor of this local law specific to corner lots. So I will distribute that to the board.
Yes, if you could. Because I think it's the corner lots that most of the feedback has been coming from, but not the beach lots.
Rachel, did that one individual that just walked in, did he by any chance want to say something, or is that?
I
He
don't know.
missed his chance.
Did you
You want to,
have a comment, or?
I'm not sure what your topic is.
Oh, okay, you're
Oh,
just coming
okay.
to see it.
Well, no,
This is-
ancillary structure stuff.
That's this.
That's it.
Just walked in at the right time.
Yeah.
Thank you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, no, no.
Do you want to comment?
It's being held over, so don't worry, it's going to continue.
Come on up to
Well,
the,
come on-
come on
yeah,
up and,
come on.
it's probably the best way to do this.
Sorry, my name is Rob Simonson. I live in Southampton town. I don't live in the village, but I work with the Corcoran Group. And I'm noticing in the village, there's an enormous amount of ancillary structures that the town has addressed in other areas all over the United States, actually, not necessarily workforce housing type of a thing, but some allowing certain situations arise when a family member needs to care for another family member.
I think this is different.
Oh,
Yeah, this is,
yeah.
right, this is a specific local law addressing
Location of accessories.
location of
Yeah.
accessories.
Setbacks.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So if you have a public comment, there will be, a time.
Right, it's towards the end. Yep.
But it's a little misleading to your point, the way it reads.
Yeah,
It sounds like accessory.
Construction
The building
building.
department the other day, and they said to come on by, so,
Okay.
and I think it's a good thing.
It is.
Great.
What, do we have any comments on it from any of the board members, or?
We're still waiting feedback from the planning commission. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead of you.
Okay.
See what they got.
So I will make a motion then to close the construction,
Adjourn?
adjourn the accessory, construction of accessory buildings.
February 26th.
Is that the next one?
Yes.
Okay. And then
I'm sorry, can I just ask, even to refresh my own memory now, this is accessory, anything accessory structures, buildings, pools, all that stuff, as far as, like you say, been corner lot, a lot of issues?
Well, first, it's waterfront lots.
Just
You know, and right now, your code has a requirement where an accessory structure can't be in the front yard, and the front yard is defined as the space between the principal dwelling and the street. So particularly on waterfront, everybody places their house close to
Right. No, I
the
get
water,
that.
and it
I get
means
that.
that entire space behind where
So it's
you want the
relabeled.
accessory structures.
It's relabeling, yeah.
So corner lots present a different issue in that they have
Two front yards.
at least two. We've had circumstances, three or more.
Is this addressing it too?
And what this would do is allow an accessory structure. In both instances, you can have an accessory structure in that technical front yard as long as they meet the required accessory structure setback. So you normally have, in both instances, both on the waterfront and the corner lot. So you could pick one, and technically it would be in that space between perhaps the building and the street. Not many cases, but it has arisen before, in which case, as long as it meets the required setback, it would be allowed.
So we're cleaning up some language.
So, but I have a question on that. So let's say you have a house that faces the street, okay, and then you have a side yard, the side of the house faces this street. So if you're looking for relief on one side of that, it would really be better not in the front yard of the house. You would have to have it on the side yard that faces the street.
But we're
Getting
also
some relief.
talking, we're only talking about not the setback, accessory structure setback. It's the space between where the street is. So you got to look at where the dwelling is in comparison to the street lines. So if you do the projection off of the house, you can't have any accessory structure in that space. And there are circumstances, usually larger corner lots, where you have a house on one section. You're not putting the accessory structure in the front there, but you may want to do on the other street, but technically you could be meeting the setback. You could be 60, 70 feet off the street, but you're technically, because of where the house is, you're in that space between where the side of the house is and that particular street, and that's the required front yard.
No, I understand that.
So,
But I'm saying if you have two front yards, you wouldn't be putting if you were looking for relief or you were allowing, it wouldn't be putting it in the front where you walk up to the front of the house. It would have to be on the side
This
that
is
the other road is.
This would allow the building inspector only in those
Yeah.
circumstances, but you're meeting the accessory, you have to meet the accessory accessory setback.
Right.
So this just allows the building inspector to say, well, in that circumstance, we have a lot of small lots. This really would give the benefit on those larger corner lots. But the smaller lots, first of all, aren't meeting the accessory structure setback to begin with. So they normally need that relief on top of the other relief. And that doesn't change. This doesn't change that. We can explore that a little bit. Maybe I can get some illustrations.
Yeah, the illustrations,
would
I think, would help,
Yeah.
definitely.
All those yourself?
Hey. Use my old planner's hat with the scale.
Crayons, watercolors?
Crayons, yeah.
Any other comments? So then I'll rephrase it. I'll make a motion to adjourn the construction of accessory buildings until the February 26th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the other proposed local law refers to wireless facilities, and I'll make a motion to open the proposed local law concerning wireless facilities.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So this also is a continuation of the public hearing you opened on January 10th. This public hearing, if you recall, our current zoning code defines wireless facilities and requires special exception approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals for every wireless facility. And there is, regardless, well, first of all, and it has, within the special exception standards, certain factors and criteria and a priority, actually. It actually gives the highest priority to structures that are on municipal properties. So in a way, first of all, so that means on every municipal property, which this board, did review when there was consideration of putting a tower at the police station, what would be the process? And the process would be first, even though it's on municipal property, the carrier would have to go to our zoning, first get permission from this board on a lease, two, would have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, then the Planning Board and the ARB before they could get a building permit, 5 different agencies in that review. So in a way, our highest priority to put this and co-locate on municipal facilities is, to a certain extent, greater process than if it was on a private piece of property. So we went back to look at how we could facilitate that review, and this proposal would actually, there are certain exemptions from that review to start with, and so what we did is added to those exemptions 3 different categories. One, which is where the total height, you're on an existing municipal building, and only a municipal building, and it's less than 10 feet high, and it's screened and the like. The other is whether there was stealth wireless facilities within an existing architectural feature, like a cupola, clock tower, things of that sort that may be on a municipal building. And so, and they could be basically disguised or otherwise not visible and creating a problem. And then the third one is an attempt to recognize that there may be in the future applications that come that want to go on poles, utility poles and the like that were within the municipal right-of-way. Property that we own, you have to give permission, have given permission and easements to utilities to maintain their poles there, but there's usually other facilities that have to go along with that, and so we tried to create some standards for that. This law we were waiting for, we had no comments at the last hearing. I received a couple comments directly to me. I haven't shared those yet with the board, but I can. I don't know if the board has received any correspondence, nor, I think we did get a planning commission, Suffolk County Planning Commission, saying a matter of local determination, but I don't think we got anything from the village planning commission. So my recommendation on this would be to also adjourn it for all purposes till your next meeting.
Have we notified the Village Planning Commission of this? I know we have for the accessories.
They were notified in December.
Okay.
I'll follow.
One of my concerns of this is, well, my biggest concern is that technology is moving so rapidly and so fast that I'm not so sure as we write this, we aren't behind what's going on. But in Section 3, I've noticed a lot in driving around since we started this. I look up at all the poles. There seems to be, and it's not necessarily in the village, but telephone poles are becoming prime positions to put repeaters and additional small cell phone carriers on the poles. And a lot of the poles, a lot of them are outside the village, because most of the poles in the village now are all new, are heavily loaded with additional stuff, and I don't want to see our village, all of a sudden, you have one pole and there's 15 things attached to it at the top.
I think it might be important that we reach out to PSEG and Verizon, those are the two main people who own the poles, and remind them that if they're entering into agreements with other entities to put things on those poles, that's in the village's right-of-way, that they would need to come here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, currently, that's the way the law reads. Wireless facility is very broadly defined and requires all those facilities to get special exception approval, as well as all the other village permits. The attempt here is to recognize both the federal law that was trying to facilitate smaller cell facilities within certain limits should be treated more favorably. And so this one attempt is also to sort of facilitate the village's review and not put them through all the review process where this board enters in any agreement again with a utility to do these things.
Gotcha. Yeah, but that's well taken, Russell. We should send
They
them
need to
out.
be reminded.
They need to be
I mean,
reminded.
I don't know if they even know, or they should know, but they need to be reminded.
Well, Gary and I had a meeting with PSEG just the other day discussing the new poles, so we can reach back out to them and speak to them about that.
Yeah, if you,
It's my understanding through the years that when these small wireless facilities do go up, that who is the owner of the pole, there is a license agreement that they enter into. But as far as the village goes, we don't keep track of any of those. The only thing the highway department or DPW does is we have road open permits. So if there's any excavation or any traffic tie-ups and things like that, we'll issue a permit for any new facilities that they're putting on. But something that doesn't touch the ground, we're not even notified. I'm sorry?
We don't get notified, and we haven't been asked.
Not at all.
I don't think we have the road openings, that's what I was thinking too. I know we have a system for that, but they can come up or have been adding whatever they want without even having to come to.
That's right. And should we want to keep track, we don't really have a vehicle for that. We have a road open permit that we could, alter if that's something we want to do. But I don't know if the village would like to keep track of where all these things are,
well,
what they are.
my only comment about it is that I have seen poles that are absolutely loaded with a ton of stuff. And it's, poles in general are ugly. Poles with wires on them are even uglier. And then you throw these additional things on them, and they really get pretty miserable looking.
The federal statute exempts both the electric and telephone, because at the time, it was necessary, and they didn't want there to be any resistance from local government. However, with the invention of cable, as you know, we entered into a large agreement with Cablevision. They need permission to be on the right-of-way, even though they're on those poles. They need permission from the village. So I would think that anything that's not electric or standard telephone would also need to get authorization from the village.
Right. I just don't think that it's been done.
No, currently with Cablevision, it's only if they're going to the ground.
Right.
Then they get a permit from us, but obviously there's hot spots all over the village on poles. So, I mean, I would be interested myself, if you do regulate it that way, that we somehow alter that permit to include that facility. You know,
Right now, they require special exception approval. As Russell just indicated, other than electric or otherwise, and cable is pursuant to the franchise agreement. So any other utility trying to do this work within the right-of-way, regardless if they have an agreement with the pole owner, requires special exception approval.
and that's
The question is whether or not we are monitoring and enforcing that as the village should. I think the evolution, as the mayor's indicated, is this is a coming issue that we should really examine and look at. This amendment just actually will facilitate the review process under certain standards, rather than having, a utility having to go through the 4 different boards for that, perhaps a single pole. So this would, under certain circumstances, if it meets certain criteria, will be exempt from the review. So this will facilitate it, but it still requires a permit. Your question is, should that be a permit through the highway department, or should it be a permit through the building department? So
I would think it would be through the highway DPW. Just we would have to have an understanding of what the board would allow and how many, what they look like. But once we knew that definition, then we could regulate it just like any other road opening permit we would have, if you like.
So we're keeping this open too?
What's that?
Did you already say that we were keeping this open?
Well, I think we should keep it open because we haven't gotten much comment on it.
yes.
Counselor, did you want to share the comments you've received?
Well, some of the questions relate to sort of what Russell was saying. What impact does this have on existing franchise agreements? And also the question was to go back and re-examine the latest FCC rulings to make sure we're consistent. Beyond that, there were no minor comments, but there were broader comments.
Anything else from the trustees, or?
Good.
So then I will propose local law on wireless facilities and make a motion to adjourn it until the February 26th meeting.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
Mayor, may I suggest, since the gentleman's here, you might want to take it out of order and give him an opportunity rather than wait till you go through your entire agenda for him to speak again. Maybe he can speak now.
Do you want to speak again, Rob?
Didn't know anything.
Anything.
We have a general comment, public comment, which you just missed as you walked in. So we're giving you the opportunity to make up for it.
The telecommunications, actually, I had 2 tenants. Verizon Wireless was a tenant.
Please identify yourself.
Robert Simonson. Years back, I worked with some friends on commercial development, and 2 of our largest tenants were T-Mobile and Verizon. And the way to do it is the device they have to use, you guys have to have a connection to it, in my opinion. The network should be connected to you, and that way, as soon as it's on, you know.
Yeah, good point.
We kind of owned their towers on our buildings. We had to install them. They had to be done a certain way, even though it was Verizon's equipment. And when they were done, it was our equipment. Everything reverts back to you. And that way, you have a little signal in there that as soon as it's lit, any port that's going out to a carrier of any kind, it'll help you really a lot. I'm not a technical guy, but I know our building manager had to figure out, how do we monitor this? It's the same as getting a receipts in your cafeteria. If you have a receipts lease, you want to know what they're making, that kind of a thing. So you'll know in telecommunications I think it's zeros and ones or something like that, and it's mirrors. So you can copy everything on it. And that'll help you, the monitoring, I think.
It's a monitoring.
It's very hard to do, but if it's your device, it has your signal in it, you just, as soon as it's lit, you're aware that it's lit. Okay?
I think the board was also giving you an opportunity to speak about any topic at all that you were here to talk about, if there was something that you wanted to address the board with.
Ancillary structures, that was, what uses could you have? You were mentioning setbacks, and some are pre-consisting, non-conforming, and if they're really close to someone's house, I understand someone probably doesn't want someone living in there. But if structures that are pre-existing meet, certain towns, I know Southampton Town has done it, I have the ability to convert a garage now. So as long as there is an apartment structure that abides by the local codes. But is the village at some point, I don't think from a financial side, I don't think there's a cry for it as much as there were in the town of Southampton, I believe, or in other areas. But is that something they would ever think about?
So you're talking about accessory structures being used for living space?
Living space, yeah.
Like the
If
one
it
that
meets a
Southampton Town
setback.
so the-
Because you were talking about setbacks, I should
Yeah, so
relate
do you
it right
remember
to
that Southampton
that.
Town just did, where the new accessory
Yeah.
structure is primarily for workforce housing, and it's the only way an apartment can be done as long as it's used for.
Section 8 or,
No, not Section 8, but affordable workforces, whatever. That seems to be a moving target on that definition.
Sure.
So we met with Diana Weir, who helped pull together that legislation, and we're meeting with her again to understand it better, but I think your point is a good one. What is our demand here?
yeah.
And we have a slightly different terrain. I think it's a little more dense here versus the town. I don't know if you would agree, everybody
Yeah,
else,
it's not the
but
same-
we definitely need to look into it.
But also, I think, not only looking into that, but there are some situations that lend themselves to a one-family house becoming a two-family. I have a friend who lives on David White's Lane, and they have the apartment upstairs, which consists of a lovely kitchen, dining room, living room with fireplace, hallway, bath, 2 bedrooms. Downstairs is more or less the mirror image. At one point, that was truly a one-family house, and now it services 2 families, and there's nothing wrong with that, because what's the difference if you have 4 bedrooms and you have 3 kids, or you have someone living upstairs, 2 people, and you have somebody living downstairs, 2 people? It's the same thing. So I think we, as a village, need to look into whether or not we will allow that, because there's such a need for year-round rentals.
There is strong.
So, right.
Thank you.
And that's an agenda item for our planning commission, but because we had the hospital adaptive reuse come in, and we had zoning issues come in, and so,
I haven't read what the town is doing on that, but one of the things that I felt that I did know about the town, and maybe they're restructuring or changing it or whatever, was that if you had a certain size property, you were allowed to build a guest house on that property. And, most of them were like 2 acres or above. But the only way that you could ever rent it or really use it is if you lived there year-round. So I'm like, well, how does that happen? Because most of the people who have a 2-acre piece of property aren't there year-round. So now you've just lost that.
Yeah.
You could have had it, but now you've just lost that. That's not right.
Yeah. Well, part of the regulation, if I understand it too, because I remember asking Jay and Diana on this at one of our supervisors and mayors, the East End meetings. It appears that the only way they'll approve an accessory structure or conversion to an apartment is if it's for workforce housing. So anyone who wants to do it primarily for lack of a better word, I don't mean it in any bad way, but for profit, they cannot. Only they already, and I asked her, it's pre-existing. If it's pre-existing, then it doesn't forbid it, but you cannot, if I understood correctly, if you have the space and the wherewithal and actually everything is setbacks, you just can't go out any longer and just build that accessory apartment. It has to be specifically for workforce housing, which means it has the rent restrictions, and so forth and so on, which is kind of,
But, I mean, how often? I mean, look, our village, years and years and years ago, on a lot of these estates, there were other cottages on there. They had their help living in there. You know, and actually, it was a great setup because the help would get up, it's quiet in the morning, they'd be out there weeding, they'd be doing this, they'd be doing that. And the thing is, then that was all done away with for some reason. Somehow that didn't exist anymore. And now we have some, as far as the workforce housing is concerned, I'm sure that there's 2-acre properties or bigger properties that they could have a guest house, they could have workforce housing there, they could have the person who takes care of their property, and then he goes out and takes care of other properties, but they're allowing him to live there. There's nothing wrong with that. It gets them off County Road 39.
There's still a fair amount of that exists.
I don't think enough.
Yeah, the year-round people, the year-round property managers and chefs and stuff. Usually have residents, allowances.
I don't agree with him on that. Because we get calls for people who are looking for cheap rentals for their chefs and, for their summer help. So I'm sure you do too, Bob. Yeah, right. There you go.
That's where your question came from. Okay, moving ahead. Communications to the board.
We have a letter from Southampton Little League. Southampton Little League would like to use Downs Park baseball fields for their 2019 season from April 1st through July 31st. This will cover the regular season and tournament play. We mentioned last year about extending our use through the end of September to allow coaches to practice with their athletes for a longer period of time. So after July 31st through September 30th, they would like to have the addition of field use for this year. They would be for practice only, no games, and league, etc. Strictly developmental for our Southampton Little League registrants. Also is enclosed our certificate of insurance and calendar of events. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and there is a attached schedule of events. So
have we done that after July 31st to September 30th before?
I don't think we have.
I don't think we
I
have either.
think that extension is a new one, which I don't have a problem with it, again, as long as it doesn't conflict with other stuff that
Yeah, that's what we need.
picks up after that.
Because doesn't the soccer league
Yeah,
start?
the soccer leagues are in there, but I don't know, are they on the ball fields or are they off to the side?
They're on the side, so it wouldn't,
It wouldn't affect it.
Not the baseball fields.
because you get the two,
Oh,
they're just using the two ball fields.
so sorry. How does it matter?
So
Yeah.
Steve Phillips and I were just talking about it a little bit because we knew it was coming up, and I believe the majors there, they're down to 3 teams on that field now. So there's not a lot of play on that field.
Okay.
So the wear and tear that is on that field isn't what it used to be. We used to use that field exclusively for Little League. Even extending this into the summer, there's nobody else using it at this point. But at some point, I don't know if we want to entertain another use of those fields.
Well, at the height, how many teams did they have?
7,
So they're 50% off?
but every division of Little League has been shrinking, since we were coaching.
Oh, really?
It's soccer.
They're combining, like,
Soccer and lacrosse now.
It's often empty.
So Gary, you were saying that it's okay for the Little League to extend beyond July, the beginning of July through September to use the fields?
there wouldn't be any conflict.
Okay.
Wouldn't be a conflict.
So it's actually August and September.
They still have their insurance, that would be the only concern. And if there's any problems with the field, we work hand in hand with the Little League, so that's not an issue.
Okay.
Don't see a problem with it.
So can we entertain a motion, resolve that the Board of Trustees authorizes the use of Downs Park baseball fields by the Southampton Little League as per the attached schedule?
I make the motion.
All in favor?
Then we have suggested resolutions.
I'll entertain a motion, resolve that the reading of the minutes the public session of the January 22nd, 2019 be dispensed with, and that those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and that the actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved.
Make the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion to resolve that the claims for the warrants dated February 14th, 2019, totaling $265,700.92, warrant A13 of the general fund, $367,188.99, warrant H10 of the capital reserve fund, and the village payrolls for the period from February 1st, 2019 to February 14th, 2019 be audited and approved.
Make the motion.
Second?
Second?
Bills over $1,000. Alliance Systems Integrators, $7,122.12. That's for PD maintenance and license renewal. Axon Enterprises, Inc., that's for PD tasers and ammo, $5,510. Bound Tree Medical, LLC, $3,096.57. That's the ambulance medical supplies and equipment. Carl and Jack's, Inc., for $1,848.66. That's for various departments' safety boots and safety gear. Cast Productions, $2,015. That's our videographer. CSEA Employment Fund, $30,361.40. That's the village's dental and vision plan. Dell Marketing for $1,789.38. That's for 2 laptops. Dependable Hydraulic, $9,365.99. That's to rebuild, reseal 2 4-in-1 bucket cylinders for a payloader. Antoinette Edwards, $1,160. That's secretary to appointed boards. Eileen M. Toohey, $1,998.75. That's for accounting and audit services. Furno Washington, Inc., $3,477.19. That's for the ambulance, 4 stretchers. First Presbyterian Church, $3,000. That's the lease for parking. Fluid Imagery, Inc., $1,957.50. That's village-wide IT support. Fundamental Business Services, $2,556. That's collection fees for Justice Court receivables. Galls, LLC, $1,995.84. That's for police uniforms. Hampton Truck and Auto, $1,701.91. That's snow plows, shoes, snow guards, and plow markers. Hampton Signs, LLC, $1,305. That's for barricade covers for the police department. Herrick Hardware, $1,836. That's supplies and materials for multiple departments. Integrated Wireless Technology, that's $7,195.50. That's ambulance pagers, chargers, and a maintenance agreement. In Prama 2 is $1,271.39. That's PD for nameplates, that's for the fire department, nameplates and license plates. Johnson's Electrical Construction Corp., $1,440. That's for traffic signals and maintenance for January. Malvisi Equipment, $1,637.18. That's various parts for central garage. Moore Medical, $2,079.57. That's for ambulance supplies. Morgan Auto Supply, $4,021.78. That's for various parts for central garage. Unistat Services, Inc., $2,250. That's the filing of the SEC disclosure for the firehouse bond. National Grid, $3,104.62. That's utilities for St. Andrews Firehouse, the Downs property, and Wilmer Lane Firehouse. Nelson Pope and Voorhees, $4,245. That's consulting services for various village boards. Norsec and Son, $6,752. That's village solid waste service. New York Tactical Officers Association, that's $1,199.96. That's for PD tactical training. Office of the State Comptroller, $7,161.20. That's the New York State portion of court fines and penalties. Optimum, $2,705.01. That's cable and internet for various departments. Petro Home Services, $2,822.43. That's heating oil for various village buildings. Physio Control, Inc., $5,875.20. That's ambulance 2018 to 2022 cardiac monitor service plan. Pitney Bowes postage, $2,400. That's for postage. PSE&G Long Island Collection Services, $23,656.26. That's utilities for various village properties. Quill Corporation, $1,955.27. That's for office supplies for various departments. Ronco, $4,930.91. That's building maintenance cleaning supplies for various buildings. Safari Land LLC, $1,102.07. That's for police firearms. Shoreline Towing, $1,400. That's PD impound towing. Southampton Excavation Development LLC, $3,875. That's for highway sand purchasing and some brush debris. Southampton Fire Department, $8,329.23. That's reimbursement for conference training expenses. Southampton Social Club, $3,000. That's employee recognition. Sprague Operating, $9,002.56. That's gas and fuel deliveries for the fleet. Susan Stevenson, $1,000. That's for medical reimbursement. Strategic Safety Dynamics, $1,866.52. That's fire department calibration services for the CO2 meters. Stryker Sales Corporation, $1,501.27. That's ambulance smart power battery kit. The press newspapers, $1,426.02. That's for advertising and posting for the village. Anthony Tohill, PC, $4,900. That's outside counsel. The Town of Southampton Comptroller, $27,590. That's for leaves and brush from the fall cleanup. Vehicle Tracking Solutions, $1,223.49. That's the GPS services. Verizon Wireless, $2,097.95. That's cell services for multiple departments. WB Mason, $2,437.17. That's office supplies for various departments. Winter Equipment Corp., $2,231.76. That's the Highway Department. A Blockbuster Hammerhead 10-foot snow plow with carbide edge kit. I thought that was pretty.
Say that again?
I thought that sounded good.
You did.
And then on the capital disbursements, Jeffrey Butler,
Almost sounding cheap.
engineer, $1,000. That's for engineering services on the ambulance barn. Mobile fleet, $8,654.81. That's a light package for the fire department. Morton Buildings, Inc., $287,962.10. That's ambulance barn partial payment to the contractor. Motorola Solutions, Inc., $11,522.90. That's fire department radio equipment. National Auto Fleet Group, $39,549.18. That's for the Chevy Tahoe for the fire department. SCC Construction Management Group, $18,500. That's the construction manager for the ambulance barn. All in favor?
Aye.
Quick question. The two laptops, are those for the ambulance corps?
No, that was for, one of them is right there in front of you. And the other,
I was going to ask, who's got the...
the other is for the village administrator.
Oh,
Okay.
So I can work weekends, nights.
You're right.
yeah.
Take it with you.
Is that for Steve to leave with?
Yes, fluid imagery, how often I'm on there. And they track it. I also now entertain a motion from the board to resolve that the Board of Trustees approves the following payments from the Capital Reserve Fund subject to permissive referendum. Mobile fleet, $8,654.81 from the Fire Equipment Reserve. The National Auto Fleet for $10,800 Fire Truck Reserve.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Then we have a number of discussion items here. First one is the Southampton Rotary Firecracker 8K Run and Walk, July 7, 2019.
The only difference this year is that it is the Sunday following the 4th of July, because 4th of July is midweek. Last year, they did it the Sunday prior, and it was too early. So this year, they're doing it the Sunday after, but it is the same route that they've always done, that is local.
Entertain a motion resolved that the Board of Trustees approves the application of the Southampton Rotary for the annual Firecracker 8K Walk Run on July 7th, 2019, and grants the use of the railroad trestle on North Sea Road to announce the event.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
And then we have the lung cancer research walk, run, bike event on August 11th.
And that is Strides for Life, same event they've been doing. I think this is their 13th or 14th year. Same route, nothing has changed. And again, the route is the route approved by the police department.
We'll entertain a motion to resolve that the Board of Trustees approves the application of the Lung Cancer Research Foundation for a walk run on August 11th, 2019.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then third, we have the property tax override, which is, I think, something that we do every year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, to allow the ability to do it if we need to, which we
What it
have
does is
not.
allows the village, in the event that there is something that occurs between now and the adoption of the budget, that will allow you, you're going to hold a public hearing, which you hear from the public, and then adopt a resolution allowing the village to override the tax cap if necessary.
Standard operating procedure. Thus far, we have not had to exercise it.
Looking good this year, too.
Good.
So without any questions, further questions, I resolve that the Board of Trustees schedules a public hearing on March 14th, 2019 to amend local law and regarding overriding the tax cap.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4 is tax sales certificates.
A number of years ago, I think in 2009, the village passed a local law permitting the village to purchase tax liens. This is, again, allowing the village to purchase the tax, the unpaid taxes, liens on those taxes.
Which has worked out well over the years.
It has worked out well.
Yep.
I believe there are 50 properties as of today that are delinquent as of today, but people are coming in. And, yeah, they do. They often do right before. So,
What's the date that they have until before?
I think here, I
Which
think
is?
it's due. Don't have the tax sale date. But I know it's in the paper this week.
Saw it.
Okay.
So make a motion?
Sorry, yep.
Second.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, and then the number 5 is our favorite, is the
Yeah, right.
2019 beach parking permit rates.
Each year, the village board passes a resolution setting the fees for the upcoming season. We are not recommending any change in the fees, same fees as last year. 3 free permits per households for residents. Any additional permits may be purchased at the summer visitor rate. Local non-village residents, $250. Senior vet, local non-village resident, $175. And summer visitor, $450.
What the 450, okay, it did go up, okay.
Are these the same?
Last year.
Same as last
Same
year.
last year. We upped them last year, so it's same year over year.
If there aren't any questions, entertain a motion resolved that the Village of Southampton Board of Trustees sets the fees for the 2019 beach parking permits.
Make a motion.
Second. Patrick, all in favor?
Aye.
And then we have number 6, surplus vehicles.
The village from time to time has vehicles that are no longer of working order, in need of more repairs than probably is, worth keeping. And from time to time, the village needs to rid themselves of those vehicles. It is necessary, I've confirmed with the village attorney, that in order to sell these vehicles, we need to have a resolution of the village board that essentially authorizes the Department of Public Works to sell the surplus vehicles and also to designate those vehicles as surplus.
Repeat that?
In essence,
Because we get
we're not,
rid
if we
of
have a
surplus
vehicle that
now,
we're no longer using,
Yeah,
we're not permitted just as a department, myself or any department, to just go out and sell them. This village board, just as we need your authorization to purchase them, we need your authorization to sell them.
First have to designate them as surplus, and that finding is that the vehicles are no longer needed for their municipal purpose. And I'm sure that the village administrator has already checked into the first aspect. You usually go and see if there's any other purpose, any other department may be able to use them or otherwise, or, and then, but it requires first the finding that it's surplus, and then 2 is authorizing the disposal.
Well, usually, I thought we already had that in motion. It goes down through all the departments and down until it gets decommissioned and it gets thrown on the street with a for sale sign, so.
Right, we can't just throw it on the street with a for sale sign.
That's the bad part.
They have to get permission.
What vehicles are we,
Gary, do you have a summary of all of the vehicles? How many vehicles there are? No, total vehicles that we're asking to declare as surplus to sell.
4 vehicles, they would be all retired police cars.
So it'd be a formal resolution by us to say, okay, go ahead, which we've done in the past with when we, because I guess I always thought it was with a certain amount, like when we were handing down or donating or selling large fire department apparatus,
Or
that
some
did
of
come
the
in front of, that
equipment we
came,
did,
and
yeah.
equipment too.
Even if you
So I
did-
thought it was a number that was a cutoff, because we've done those, and
Right. Even if you're declaring it excess and it has no value, and you're disposing of things that were of a certain value, there still needs to be recognition of this village board.
I can remember, though, and I'm sure this is what you're feeling too, Gary, when a certain department would come to us and ask for a vehicle and give us the cost of the new vehicle, we were then told what the old vehicle could bring. We feel we can sell that vehicle for such and such. And we say, okay, fine. And so that kind of was giving permission. But I'm not saying that we're giving permission for everything, and I'm sure there are vehicles that we haven't given permission for. So now we know you have to get permission.
Designate them as surplus, that we have no longer use for them, and
Right.
that by whatever means legal, and there are several ways that you can legally dispose of the vehicles, authorizing that to be done.
No, that's great.
Oh, so it's a formal, so it's just a formal
just-
process for every
it's a-
time.
Like-
And now
like
he
I
can
said,
lump-
just
he can
like
say,
the-
like, we have X amount of vehicles to get it done in one shot.
Right, just like the warrant, there are bills on there for $25.14.
Right, yeah.
Still need
Gotcha.
your permission to spend it.
Okay, gotcha.
So entertain a motion to resolve that the Board of Trustees declare the list of vehicles as surplus and authorize the Department of Public Works to sell surplus vehicles through what legal means possible.
I make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
And last, we have a public hearing on resident height restrictions and flat roofs, which has become somewhat of an issue.
This is a proposal to schedule a public hearing
Right.
on a proposed local law that would amend Section 116-12F, which would clarify the height of residence where a portion of the roof is flat. Currently, that section provides for the height of residential buildings based on lot size as well as roof pitch. So if you're a lot under 20,000, there's a certain height, 20 to 40 another height, and above 40 is another height. But you also reduce the height of structures because of flat roofs, and that's where the pitch is flatter than 7 on 12. In other words, 7 inches of rise for every 12 inches of run. And in which case, the height of the structure is to be 7 feet less. And the village's intent when you adopted this in 2015 was you were getting, based on all other parameters, you were getting more boxy-looking structures, more flat roofs that were too high and imposing in the neighborhoods and not consistent with the things, the rest of the neighborhood. So this board adopted those regulations. However, the regulations call for the certain height if you're flatter than 7 on 12 or if you're greater. And the question is, what happens when the roof has a portion of it that may be flat and also pitched at the same time? And there's been several instances that have come before the building department. We've received issues as to those matters. They've ended up with flat roofs and portions which are overlooking residences, privacy issues, things of that sort. So the proposed law here would to clarify that. And back in 2015, my research shows that there was a discussion, or at least part of the planning documents behind that amendment in the first place identified this issue of potentially the hybrid type roof, but nothing was expressly put in the code one way or another. So this would be to incorporate a provision that would basically say where a building, where 5% of the total roof area is less than the 7 by 12, then that would be considered to be flat and you have to go with the lower height. That was what was in the Planning Commission recommendations in the study, but this would be a proposal to have a public hearing and have that discussion start. So this would be scheduling it for your March 26th meeting because you have the continuation of the construction and leaf blower and landscape law on the 14th. So.
Okay.
So what if you have a totally flat roof?
Right now, that's already addressed. If it's totally flat, you've got to be 7 feet below the height limit.
That's what that law addressed, I remember that. So now what we've had is a
pitch
combination
roof, you
of
have you can meet the
angle.
full height. The question is, what if I have a roof that has flat portions within it? So what you're getting is someone doing the pitch and then doing a
Mansard
flat
style.
type style.
Unintended consequences that weren't addressed in this original.
Right. So this clarifies that. The only debate you might have is regarding that number, 5% or more. One of the things that, in looking at the impact, how it relates to everything, one of the things that we're trying to promote in our guidelines is porches and open entryways and things of that sort. So what we recognized here is that for the purpose of this section, open roofs, the roof area over an open porch won't count towards that total roof area. This will schedule that for March 26. Do we need a motion?
Make that motion.
March 26th?
Second?
Yes.
March 26th.
Yep. We have a motion and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have one more discussion item, if I could add it. Gary just got some quotes. We have the contract back from the town regarding a drainage project for which we got funding from CPF. So Gary would like to describe what the work is being done and request that the board consider moving forward with the project, establishing a budget for it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sure everybody's aware of the CPF monies that we received, grant we received to put in drainage on Job's Lane and Meeting House Lane, taking more pressure off Lake Agawam. The grant came in about $292,000. Bless you.
292?
$292,000.
Bless you, excuse me. Sorry.
We had the opportunity to look at two different vendors because we have a paving and drainage contract with one vendor, but we were also able to piggyback off a town contract for another vendor. So I got those two prices, and the lesser of the two is $250,388, and that's South Fork Asphalt. If the board was willing, we could tell them tomorrow. They could call in a mark out, and they could start that project within 2 weeks. It is. The only unexciting part about it is we'll get notification out to all the businesses on Job's Lane, because this will be opening up the southern lane of the street, and we'll be having, lane closures through the day. We would try to do a morning lane in one direction and an evening lane in another direction.
So the entire southbound lane, right in the middle of the lane will be torn?
Yeah, we would, the south side or the eastbound lane would be closed during the day, as well as the parking on the south side. And then we would use that other existing lane to, put the morning traffic to the east and the evening traffic to the west.
How long will the project take? How many?
It'll be sporadic over about a 2-week period. So they'll basically close down a section of the roadway and then they'll move on.
What about paving after that? Do we get repaving on curb to curb on that, or are we just going to patch it up, or what we're going to do with that?
We do, but a different vehicle again. The first paving will just be spot paving under this contract. To follow that, National Grid wants to put gas lines down that street, and when they do that, they'll be required to do curb-to-curb paving at no cost to us.
Are they going to do that while it's open?
No.
No?
No, or no? Of course not. No.
They'll do it when it's most in up time.
After we repave it. After we repave it, they'll come in.
They are scheduled at this point to try to come in April and do the rest of that work. But it's a little tricky to coordinate, tying off gas services at the same time.
So we're looking to have it patched
We'll have it
for coming in, entering in our season? Is that what you're?
No, I would like to say that before Memorial Day, we will have Job's Lane repaved curb to curb.
Good.
That's the plan.
On Meeting House Lane, this isn't just diverting the water from Lake Agawam, it also will relieve us a little bit on the flooding issues we're having there, right?
Yeah, on the Meeting House Lane area, we'd be putting 2 drainage structures in the apron area of the ambulance building. So what we'd be doing is we'd be changing all the existing catch basins in that area that go into a pipe that then continues down Job's Lane. But then we would also be picking up some drainage there. 2 8x10 drainage pools would go in the apron of the ambulance. So we're taking a little bit off each time. And other than that, on Job's Lane itself, it'll be about 11 drainage structures taking pressure off Agawam.
And those 11 drainage structures, are they going to go in the street itself, or?
Yes, they'll be sort of straddling the parking and the southern side of the road.
Okay.
Catch basins will go in the brick area.
I'm all for that project.
I'm just looking for permission to start.
Is this the complete cost of the project?
Yes.
So we actually, the original estimates were perhaps high, and that was what the grant was based on?
That's correct, but in this kind of thing, you could always say we might be 10% higher than the price that's being stated here. They don't know what they'll find when they start digging.
So it's 292 currently, based on current facts we have for the
It's
entire project?
250.
And of that, how much is being,
264, and
how much
our
is
grant
ours?
is 290 something, right?
Grant is 292, the project is coming in at 250?
264.
Oh, okay, so we have a grant tonight, so.
I actually have 253.88.
I heard 250 something.
Harry, did you say that included the final repaving of Job's Lane too, or
No.
not?
Spot paving.
Spot payment.
Spot
The
paving, but
additional
not the...
cost, no, the additional full cost, that'd be about another $100,000, but at this time, National Grid is supposed to be picking that up
They're
when they
picking it
install
up?
their
Okay,
mains.
Gotcha.
So we didn't include that into
Yep.
the grant.
Well, it's probably going to come in close to the 290, because that's old structure that we're dealing with.
We don't know. We might find things we have to go around, utilities that aren't marked. But, and then I would be, look into if we did have monies left over, if the town would allow us, that, we talk about additional structures, but we'll cross that
Additional
bridge.
drainage.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we doing any of that? Is it all outside?
No, this is all contracted out.
Entertain a motion to,
Make the motion.
Who's the contract?
With it.
South Fork Asphalt.
Second.
all in favor?
Thank you.
I love those drainage.
Yes, you can.
How many drains do we have now?
Oh, it's a great project.
Love that. Dozens, right? Yeah. Thank you.
So, moving ahead, we have comments from board members. Trustee Yuskremski.
I'm good, other than happy Valentine's Day to all. Ladies wearing red.
Trustee Allen.
Simple pleasures.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I just came back from vacation where there was a lot of snow, and I seem to have brought snow with me. The first snow here. But spring is on its way. I just wanted to report back that the town advised us that the 2 affordable homes that were built up on North McGee Street were completed, and the families are moving in this week, so that's exciting. And that there's still, for the other 16 units that were made available through the lottery last fall, over here on, oh gosh, now the name escapes me, the Point, the Seasons? Southampton Point, thank you. They're still vetting applicants, and I think they received over, gosh, 500 applicants on that, but, it's interesting.
condos?
Yeah, there's 16 condos, the 1 and 2 bedroom condos, but it's interesting how many people get vetted and skipped over. So even if you have a number that's pretty high, you have a chance, which
Yeah, because they go
they're
through.
going through it. And then the other, I'm sure you'll be talking about, it came to our attention that there's a 60-unit affordable housing project proposed over here on County Road 39 where the old Baptist church is, and Mayor and Nancy, I'll let you address that, but it will involve the village, and there's a potential egress, which we talked about earlier, and I think we're all encouraging the public to go and understand that and provide their feedback. So, and the only other thing I was going to mention is that we had a very good meeting yesterday with our very prominent landscape business owners with regards to the legislation underway. And they couldn't be more helpful and supportive, and they have requested that we also reach out to the homeowners and help the homeowners understand the implications of the gas leaf blowers, not only with regard to noise, but the health and environmental factors. And one of the main reasons they illustrated, or they mentioned to us why homeowners request their use of these gas leaf blowers is to remove grass clippings in the summer, because they don't want to walk out of their house and get grass clippings on their feet when they go to the pool. So, there's going to have to be a give and take across the board here to help this legislation move forward, so.
I thought one of the very interesting things, and you'll remember them, is that they were indicating that the old lock mowers were really the best because they had a tendency, because of the reels, to cut the grass very tenderly and fine, and there was no need for blowers and raking after you went through with a lock.
Yeah, had a very fine.
No clumps.
dispersed.
No
Yeah.
clumps. And
Clumps.
today with
Tossed.
these big monster circulating machines, they pile it up. So, if you have an old lock in the garage, get it out.
Yeah. They're great machines. I had a few of them.
Yeah, they are. Okay, Trustee McGann.
So just to add to what Kimberly was talking about, there was a meeting last night over at the library, the basement of the library, and it was the Tuckahoe CAC who really wanted some information regarding this housing project that is to go behind Reverend Havrilla's church on County Road 39. For those of you who are familiar with that, it's kind of near where Burger King is, or the entrance to that would be near Burger King. So I guess that church would be willing to sell this organization a little over 5 acres. We saw renderings of what they wanted to do, 60 units, plus another building that would sort of more or less house some of the people who work there, and then also an exercise room and a meeting room for the people who live there. The project actually was very lovely. It is the kind of project, it's a strictly rental, not ownership. And I think the least amount, the lowest rent for a one-bedroom would be $500, and then it goes up to, I think, over $1,100 a month. But the thing is that this project, I was very excited if it was strictly for this area only, but it's not, and it's done in lottery, and it's anyone from anywhere on Long Island. So the chances of us really focusing on our area and getting our people to live there are maybe 50-50. So, but the big issue that I found was, although there's an entrance on County Road 39, according to the master plan, you have to have 2 other ways of getting in and out of there. So one of the entrances would be off of Seasons, which is a road that comes in over by P.C. Richards and goes through a very big development. And then the other would be to connect to Hillcrest Avenue. So there were a number of people from Hillcrest there because it would create a lot more traffic on their street, and they're not in favor of that. So I'm not sure. I think the town at this point, February 28th is the meeting. It's a work session. You cannot say anything, but if you are having feelings that you're not happy with this, you have to express that to the town because they can say, we're not moving forward with it. And if they don't get enough of that over there, then they will move forward. And what that means is it's the beginning of the process. So they'll start their process. It could be a very long process, and it might end up where they won't get it anyway, but it's more of a chance that you're taking for those people who are unhappy with it.
I think the biggest, like you said, the biggest issue is the fact that Hillcrest Avenue alone,
Yes.
that being, because if you look at the top, the map from top, that would be a straight run to get in and out of it.
I know.
The other road, so that they would be impacted. I mean, unfortunately.
most.
Yeah, the most.
And that
And we need the
concerns
housing,
me
but
because if you have 60 units and 2 cars, I mean,
that's quite a bit. That would be the predominant use to get in and out.
I mean, really the biggest in and out, I would think. I mean, if you're coming from the west and you're going in, you might come in off.
You might come off 39, but the main usage would be coming
But if you're coming into the village or you're going somewhere else, you're going out that way.
And I saw part of the discussion was brought up by one of the board members, I think it was Christine, who brought up about reducing the amount of it, and the developer said it can't be less than 60 because it's not a viable project without it being that number. So I don't know how much wiggle
As
room.
workforce housing only, or because the alternative is...
It's not just workforce, because I think there's 16 veteran units that will be given to the veterans, which I think is lovely. So someone asked the question, are these handicapped people? In some cases, they are. Are they people who are living on the street now, or are they people who have other places to live? Some are. Some have a room somewhere. They're looking to make it better. I think it's so commendable. And then, from that point, it's a lottery, and who gets what, and they can't restrict it to just here. It has to be all of Long Island. So you could get people who are coming out from way up Island, who are now moving into our neighborhood, who are renting an apartment for $500 a month, when in fact we have so many people here who are finding it hard to stay here because it's too expensive. We have young people who grew up here who can't stay because they can't find any place to live. And we're not if this was for us, I would say that's terrific, but it's not.
But that's the law.
I know that's the
Yeah,
law.
it's
Every
true.
single, whether it's those
Yes,
two
I know,
houses
and they
or the
were very
pond.
clear about that,
Well,
and
the
we all
only way you
got
can
it.
oppose that, I
Still
think,
didn't.
is if it's first responder. The only way you can get around that, apparently, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if it's designated or that port, that's how we did ours on Bailey Road, because it was for first responders in the area.
That was a different, that was also
No,
a
but I see,
different
like, even
income
because
category.
Springs, East End were in the same area. You can't, it's affordable housing. It has to be for everybody. But what I understand, the only way around that is when you designate a portion of it for first responders in the area.
Nancy, I think it's a great project and that we need to, and we've always been working, trying to find affordable
Oh,
housing
there's no question.
for the individuals that work out here. I think we all need more information on what they're going to do.
Well, I think you do. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
How many units were
Because,
done on Sandy Hollow that's going up there now? How many was that? Because that's apartments too, right?
Yes,
I
I'm
think
not sure.
34,
34?
Yeah.
something like that.
I mean, one of the difficulties we have is that we have right there the rehab center, which is a high-density facility, and now we're going to bring in another high-density facility, and sometimes to try to do a project for the greater good, we may be actually causing more problems than we think. So I think that this is a great start, but it really needs to be taken a look at, and there needs to be traffic studies, density studies, environmental studies, because
Yeah, but that will all happen if they give it the green light to start all of that. They can also turn around and shut it right down and say, no, we have a neighborhood that's up in arms and doesn't want it.
right.
If it is shut down, what happens? What's the alternative?
I don't know, they look someplace else probably.
Yeah, but
Residential
residential, what's it zoned for now?
It's zone, it's
Okay, so
R20.
then
So
it's,
I guess you can get like, I think. the
7
apartments-
houses.
7
7
houses, so I was
okay.
going to say
Or
5,
church.
so yeah.
okay, so
Or
it's a
church.
church, 7 houses, or,
They
Or,
have to change, that's the other thing, the zoning has to be changed.
Yeah, they have to
They have to change it to multiple family, and that's what they're really going for to the town at this point, is to make a zoning change. And of course, the CAC from Tuckahoe is totally against any zoning changes, because the CAC in Tuckahoe, because of what we went through with the supermarket on the highway, is totally against anything happening on the highway, because it's such a bad highway, and so many accidents, and they've been trying to get a traffic light forever, and then people were saying, well, they could put a traffic light. There's no way they're going to get a traffic light there. It's across from Burger King. How many feet would that be from the entrance and the exit? 25? I mean, really, this is
looks like they were going to get a traffic
well,
light.
well, the people, yeah, I know. I mean, it's just that they said, well, maybe they could put a traffic light there. There's no way. Well, we're going to try to get a traffic light. I said, you'll never get a traffic light there.
traffic light, another one just, 500, quarter mile east.
Either way.
I know, exactly.
No,
So-
it's a difficult spot to
It's a difficult spot. I mean,
develop. I think they have quite a long ways, and if I'm not mistaken, a piece of it is in the village.
one corner of it is in the village, and that's the corner that they want to
Where
have
they
the
will use
sewage
the
treatment on,
accent.
which basically is in the backyard of the people who live on Hillcrest Avenue.
Right. Yep. So there's some difficulties there.
Yeah. Anyway, people should know about it. Their next meeting is February 28th. If you have an interest in it, you should go over there. It's a work session. You probably won't be able to say anything, but you can listen. And if you can go over and investigate now, and if it's something that you feel you don't want, you can make that known.
Where do we find out where discussions are had? Because you came upon it, but none
You
of
know what,
us
we
knew.
can ask the board over there to notify us of any future discussions.
This is so,
Well, actually, they're supposed to notify us.
Russ, you ought to know who to call over there.
Yes, but also if they do schedule a change of zone, we'll get notification of.
I mean, I got this, they called me from the Tuckahoe CAC, but I also got from one of the board members over there who also called me and said, you might want to go to this.
Yeah,
So
It's
I went.
been publicized.
And it was very last minute, I have to tell you. It was like the day before.
yeah, I hadn't heard of it, and I got a
Yeah.
call about 7:15. I think it
Yeah.
started at 7.
Yeah.
So the meeting was just that, yeah.
So what I hear is that you want to have Russell just send a note to the town clerk and the town board that you want to be notified of any meetings on that topic.
Although I think there is a regulation that we're supposed to be notified.
If part of
I
it
know,
is in the village.
but
and part of
we'll
it
just
is-
remind them.
Yeah, it would be helpful, because some of us, I received 2 calls this morning, and would have been nice.
You know, I think that, I commend this company because I think they've done a lot of really good projects
Yes, they
on
have.
Long Island. And they converted the Henry Perkins Hotel in Riverhead, which they had a picture of that. But then they've done a lot of other veteran projects, all on Long Island, Ronkonkoma. I mean, they showed pictures of everything that they've done. But I'm very, very sympathetic to our young people who are here and our older people and those people in between who are having a tough time staying here. We have a service community, and if we cannot have the people who service this community live here anymore, then what's going to happen? The people who live here won't want to live here because they can't be serviced anymore. So we have real issues. We have to be able
Well,
to.
I just came back from a place where the town next door had that, and they are now closed 8 months out of the year. And so for 4 months out of the year, they're a resort community, and they have a barracks set up, and all the service individuals come and stay there, and the whole character and spirit of that town has now vanished. So,
It's a tricky way.
yeah, so...
But thank you for bringing it to everybody's attention. Trustee Hattrick.
I don't know any Valentine's Day jokes,
Oh, come on.
and probably don't have the courage to tell him if I did, so I'll just say, Happy Valentine's Day, and adios, amigos.
Well said.
Well, that's good. Not a lot here, but the one thing that I think everybody should do, because it was such a, Rich, you were involved in it since the very beginning, is the ambulance facility. And they've got, the front-facing wall is just going up.
Looks enormous, doesn't it?
That looks, anytime you have.
I know,
this-
that I absolutely.
That's one big thing there with it exposed. That'll be, once we get everything filled back in, it won't look as...
But those were long, tough,
Looks more like an
hard
emergency
meetings.
ward.
Been a lot of trials and tribulations along the way, yes.
Right,
So,
so it's, to me, it was really exciting to see that go up. I guess it was yesterday it went up. And, I drive by and see them add a little bit more every
yeah, the
day.
weather, the very warm weather certainly
Yeah.
has been to their advantage to move ahead.
Yep, it's really
It's like
helped.
the hoisting of a Amish barn in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it sort of was when I saw it go up. I said, we should have had some kind of dedication. But it's up. They're working hard on it, and that's great. The other thing I'll say is I think the weather is changing a little bit. And you'll notice the days are longer and the sun's a little stronger.
I have actually stuff already coming up.
Yeah, there's hope on the horizon that I'm sure will be blasted along the way, but
Knock on wood, we don't get those 4 storms we got last year.
What is the
We're
deer
not done
count?
yet. We're not done yet. Let's not-
What's the deer count?
I
Is that-
haven't gotten an update from him on the final count, but he was pushing close to 100 deer the last I spoke to him. So.
But we have 1,000, right?
Well, one of the difficulties with them is that most of the larger estates, which was contrary to what we thought originally, have put up deer fencing, and it's behind the hedges and stuff, so you don't really see it. And most of their property managers have run the deer out of the property, so they
Well, they had to go somewhere.
right. So they all went to the village,
Yeah, right.
and I don't think they're shopping.
Saw 3 of them running on the high school track the other morning. Dropped my daughter off.
Probably exercising.
Don't see that every morning.
It's gonna take probably 3 years before you see.
Well,
any
100,
real-
we could have those back by spring.
Yep. You could.
I mean, We have to really do it faster, I think. I don't know
Yeah,
how we're going to do it, but we're going to have to think about it.
We have a nature preserve now in the village. I mean, I saw 8 on Little Plains Road. 8.
I have
Deputize everybody.
8 to 10 behind my
See one,
house.
we can shoot it.
and after that little bit of snow we had, I looked out at the front yard, and it looked like, a herd of 1,000 had gone through the front and
Yeah, right.
around the back, and then all the ivy was about 6 feet high instead of
Yeah.
down to the ground, so. But, one of the deer, one of my major concerns is that because they've been pushed out of the estate areas, which have a tremendous amount of food source, and they've been pushed into the village in the smaller lots, and people have a tendency, if they lose their rhododendrons or their plants, they aren't going to replace them right away. Those deer, I think, are going to have a pretty tough time
I know, you'd be
surviving, because their food sources are going to be less. And you mentioned that they're going to bring back those 100 by spring. Sometimes animal populations like that, when they're under stress,
They don't
breed well. So, hopefully that next year doing more of this hunting, which we didn't, knock on wood, have a lot of issues. There was a couple of calls on tree stands that were questionable, but overall I thought it was pretty good. And there was individuals that I never thought in 100 years would ask a hunter to come onto their property. And he was calling me and telling me, I was over at Mrs. So-and-so's house, and, we had tea together and talked about where the hunter was going to be placed. And I was like, So I think overall it worked out
But we haven't
well.
had them go on any of the municipal properties yet.
No, we have not. I've stayed away from municipal properties because I felt that there's, they're publicly owned. There's some people that don't want hunting, and there's some people that do want hunting, and so we'd leave them.
Well, I think we have to address that as we get
Yep.
into the future, because there's a lot of them on the municipal properties.
Yeah, I was at
And so, if you're going to get rid of them, you're going to have to go to the municipal properties, because we have a lot of parkland around that they're in there, and you're going to have to get them out of there.
Yep, we're going to have to take a look at that. I was at a deer management meeting last week. What was supposed to be a 2-hour meeting was all day.
Wow.
And the DEC were there,
Was this for Long Island?
was for Long Island.
Okay.
Yep, yep. And the general consensus out of it was that the best way of controlling deer populations was hunting. And the best way to control the hunting is to have professional services doing the hunting.
Right.
And I mean, that overall was the general consensus. And, I tried to tell the DEC I felt the deer were their animals and they should control them, but they didn't want to hear it.
Did they mention how many deer, what the deer population or imbalance is for Long Island?
No, they had very poor data on that, and so one of the discussions was to reach out to the various villages. For, North Haven has a big culling program, and East Hampton does, and there's some other, Northport and Port Jeff and some of the other places do. And part of it was that they need to reach out and ask where and how many that we've taken and what species we've taken, because they just get a general, they'll get deer from the deer tags, they know how many overall have been taken, but not where. So it was pretty interesting. It was a long day to talk about deer.
It's not just our problem, it's all over the
No, it was all the towns and villages were there. And
It's a long day,
all
especially when
had
you're
the
hearing a
same
lot of
issue.
stuff we've been talking about for years.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's not like there's anything new was presented, I would imagine.
No.
Yeah, I mean, if you Google white-tailed deer, you would just be, it's unbelievable in how many have it's like a population explosion across the United States for them.
The only interesting thing, Rich, is that a lot of these villages and towns had professionals that they were paying that came into the village and town to organize deer management, and their talks were exactly what we've been doing. So,
Well, good news is that, actually, I take back what I said a little, because it is more the same, because as you mentioned, there appears to finally be a consensus that the one way during the day you all agreed upon to handle this was through hunting. And it's been hard for a lot of people to admit to, or and say that, but it's what's got to be done, like it or not. And they're all, like I said, they're all doing it.
they're all doing it. And, we didn't do it with a hiree as of yet, but the same program that we did, these other outfits were doing. So overall, I think it's pretty good, and we just need to keep going.
When is hunting season over?
Hunting season's over, the 1st of January it was over.
Oh, okay. I thought it went on before that.
No.
Isn't the season no special permits, though?
Well, yeah, you
Nuisance
can get
permits.
nuisance permits, but a nuisance permit can only be issued to an individual. So a property owner could get a nuisance permit, but that would be it.
But could the individual get the nuisance permit and use the program we got, or since that's our program, it's not the
Yeah,
same?
no, he could, or he or she could have a individual get a nuisance permit, and then they would be under the same rules and regulations as a regular hunting season in regards to setbacks and property sizes.
And could go beyond the January 1st cutoff?
Yes.
So the program we have could actually be
They can go
utilized?
through, and the nuisance permit allows a lot more stuff, because it allows you to hunt at night, allows you to bait. So. And the other meeting, I guess I went to all day, too. These have been all-day meetings.
How's your work going?
God, so luckily I'm employed still. Was the opioid seminar, which was very interesting. And a lot of county individuals and legislators were there, and certainly on Long Island we have a big issue. And it's really stemmed from most of your prescription drugs, but we also have a tremendous amount of drugs coming in from our borders, and particularly it seemed the most alarming drug that they discussed, and Chief, you'll know, is the fentanyl. And most of the drugs and the overdoses they get, they test the drug, and 90% of them have fentanyl in it, and there's a whole ranges of different fentanyl-style drugs. But it is definitely a horrible scenario. There was a guy that was recently arrested that was a dealer, and he was caught on a tape telling somebody that was buying the drugs from him. They go, "How good is this stuff?" And he goes, "Man, this is a man killer." And he was right. It was laced with fentanyl, and that's exactly what it does. So, it's sort of a real sad thing. We lose people that are young. We lose our vets. A lot of our vets are end up being addicted, and people who have injuries and traffic accidents that start out on, painkillers. So it is something that we got to address overall, and the only way it can be addressed is by all of us together. It's a big issue. Now, I don't know if you want to say anything, Chief, about it? Nope. Okay. But so it was a good assemblance of people, and the governor has made a lot of legislation that is to help some of these addicted individuals. So overall, it's good. And I have nothing more to say. Is there any public comment?
Regarding the opioids, I've lost young friends of my son, actually.
Yeah.
Ages probably 25 to 32 years old. There's probably been, one friend of mine from East Hampton has 12. That's an alarming lot of, that's
That's
an
an
alarming number for a small community of this size, I think.
12 people died?
Yeah, actually, Matty Lester
Yeah.
yeah, there was like a total of like 15, but some were DUIs and accidents or whatever. But there's a family, and I talked to the former mayor about this. The Sackler family had pretty much pushed. I was on Oxycontin for an operation myself last year. I wanted 2 days of it, and that's it. And after a day, I didn't take any more. And it was I don't know if you've ever had it for an operation. It's the single most inconsistent pharmaceutical high I've ever had in my life. These are medications. They're supposed to be consistent. But the family promoted that they were all MDs. If you look who made billions out of Oxy, it's the Sackler family. And so there's actually the class action suit is going in. It's in right now. So hopefully something will come of that. And, you know, they bought a pharmaceutical company too. There was a whole different bunch of things so they had it all wired. So as soon as they got the drugs they do distributorships. They come in through Canada, they go like this, or they come in through Mexico and go like that, or they come in, wherever they come in from, it's an umbrella. And they had it all set up.
Yeah, it's just really
It's
unfortunate that it's hitting so many of the young.
Yeah. Chris Fisher, the guy that delivered me a cord of wood the other day was a buddy of his. Chris was my tree guy.
But I think a lot of those drugs are laced with fentanyl. And
Yes.
fentanyl is such an extremely powerful drug. I was listening to public broadcasting today in the car, and they had a anesthesiologist who said, and he's so totally against fentanyl, he said a cup of fentanyl could kill 1 million people.
Yeah.
That's how strong it is.
Yeah, that is.
I mean,
He said it's a man killer.
Yeah, it's a man killer.
It was mine. Yeah.
But apparently Long Island has some of the highest opioid death rates in the country.
It's a community thing.
Massachusetts has a really high rate
At
too.
Chris's funeral, at Chris Fisher's funeral, I was talking to one of the Welland kids, Ray or Jesse, and I said, you got to keep an eye on his friends. Part of it is it's a community thing.
Yeah.
If you don't keep, and he said, what do you mean? And I said, junkies, people that are addicted, they don't do it by themselves. They always do it with friends, especially heroin or anything like that. They'll do it with someone. And just as I said that, a kid rolls up and he's all lit up, and he was definitely on something. And then he right away got in my face, and I don't back down from, but I just said, Ray, I gotta go. And I said, he's the one you want to keep an eye on. You know, and it's sad because
It's very sad.
Yeah, it's hard. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, with that, I make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing contracts, legal, and personnel matters involving the village.
Second? Okay.
Aye.